Hello and welcome to Genealogy Quick Start. We are so happy to have you here today because guess what? We have a very special guest and we have new quick starts for you today. If you would like to know what's coming on before the show, please subscribe to our newsletter. I don't send only just like two, at the most three per month, just to let you know about the show. So please subscribe. Today, like I said, I'm Shamel Jordan, and we have new quick starts. One is Crossbones and a Cogwheel, the life of Johann Leonhard. I didn't ask him how you said it. I think it's right. And so it's about tombstones. Have you ever seen some interesting things on tombstones? Jim's going to talk to us about some of that, but really this is just one part of the four keys that helped him to learn more about this ancestor. I've actually never seen anything like this on a tombstone, and that's always fun to learn because genealogists love cemeteries. Are you a genealogist that loves cemeteries? Or are you one who are afraid of cemeteries? When you're telling me that, also let me know where you are and which genealogy group you're a member of, because yes, quick starters are members of genealogy group. And guess what? We also volunteer and help out. We don't just sit back and say, hey, this is what I want you to serve me. Our genealogy groups survive because of our volunteers. So that's one quick start. I don't know how I got on a tangent. The other one I've wanted to know for a very long time, and you might think this does not apply to U.S. research, but really, Andrew is going to share with you how you might want to rethink that. And our special guest, Andrew Redfern, is going to talk to us about tracing the criminals of Australia. I always thought, maybe having a criminal, some people think it's a bad thing, but genealogists, we know that is the juicy thing. That is the thing that we all want to have. So without further ado, hey, did I tell you, please let us know where you are watching Genealogy Quick Start, whether you are watching live or in recording, and also represent your genealogy group. So let me bring on the quick starters of the world. First up, columnist and editor James M. Beidler. How are you, Jim?
I am well, Shamel. Good to see you.
And I don't know why he's holding his head. Genealogy tip of the day, Michael John Neill. Hey, Michael, how are you?
I'm doing well, Shamel. Hey, that rhymes.
Are you rapping again? You guys gonna rap again?
No, we are not. The world is not ready for that.
He's just trying to hold his beard up. That's all. So he got exercise that there was an old picture of him on a website, and I said, "Yeah, that's about a foot of beard ago."
Yes, that's how we can know the time. I'm trying not to date any shows, but I guess watching Michael's beard will help you know which episode and when it was created. So
like
hey,
the rings of a tree, yeah.
So beyond Michael's grooming, we have some genealogy to talk about. So we have our special guest will be talking about criminals. Do you have any criminals in your family, Jim and Michael, or anyone who's watching live or in recording? Any criminals?
I'm sure I do, but they might have been unindicted co-conspirators. So.
Michael.
Well, the only trying to think of the one that I can remember the easiest. He refused in the 1940s. My great grandfather refused to let his cattle be tested for tuberculosis, to the point where he was arrested. And after he posted bond or bail, he had a change of heart and he let them. But until then, he refused, and they took him to county jail. And made the paper and everything else. So
Wow.
there's a
That's
few others,
fun.
but that's one of the, I think, more interesting stories. A little atypical crime there, if you will.
For sure.
Yes, that's lots of fun. Who do we have here? We have a lot of shy people here today. I saw you guys there. We have Gary. Hi, Gary from Toledo, representing that he is a genealogy junkie, AAGSC, AAHGSC, and AAGHS. I think I don't know what all of those are. What is the first one, Gary? African American genealogy. Oh, that's not, wait, what's AAGSC, Gary? Hey, Jean from another Jean. This is a junkie column here. This is AAGG in Philly, AAHGS, Family Quest, and Greater Virginia, South Carolina Historical Society. Hello, Debbie from Raleigh. I love Raleigh. Debbie, you know I'm coming to Raleigh sometime because it is kind of like Mid-South genealogy Disney. Cleveland, Chicago, and National. Thank you very much. Cleveland.
And you skipped over Cindy Cruz, my cousin.
Oh, Cindy was number one. Cindy in balmy. Did you say balmy? Okay, we won't get into weather. Topeka, Kansas, no snow here. Thank you, Cindy, for rubbing that in. Topeka Genealogical Society president. Let's all say hello to the president. And that's your cousin, Jim?
Yep,
all right.
Several ways. Yeah.
All right. Wow. I'm afraid to hang out with the two of you. All right, let's get. You're quite enough. I can't imagine someone who's multiple ways related to you. All right, let's get started with our quick start. Crossbones and Cogwheel. Life of, say the name, Jim.
Johann Leonhard Rieth.
Rieth. I like that. I have a friend named Rieth, R-E-E-T, from Camden, New Jersey. Hey, Rieth, what's up? You could spell it R-I-E-T-H too. I didn't know that. All right. So tell us what this is all about. This isn't a quick start. This is 4 keys, correct?
It's a 4 keys. It is one of my 5th grade grandfathers. And he was one of the pioneers of the Tulpehocken region of Berks and Lebanon County, Pennsylvania. And he's one of 2 of my ancestors who are almost tied as far as having the earliest tombstones that are extant, both from the 1740s. And so as a matter of fact, I profiled Stefan Brecht in a quick start a couple of months ago. So I figured it was only good form to also show you Leonhard Rieth. So there's just the fact that you have a tombstone in Berks County from the 1740s still extant. That's special in and of itself.
That is super cool. Like, I didn't like, sometimes when I see those old, like, even if it's like much later than that, but before 1800s, they seem so thin, but they've withstood like all of that time. And we have like bigger stones that have toppled. I don't know what they knew back then that we don't know, but yeah. So are you ready to get started with Crossbones and a Cogwheel?
Absolutely.
All right. Let's go ahead and look at the first key for Johann, which is 18th century tombstones may still exist. So, are you saying they don't exist because a lot of people didn't have them? Like, why don't they still exist?
Well, there's a fair number of them, and this of course depends on the area that you're at. You go up to New England, that was settled earlier, you're going to have 1600s tombstones. In Pennsylvania, settled in the early 1700s, and more of a frontier area, much of it. If there ever were tombstones, they might have been just what we call field stones. That was basically a piece of rock that they may have carved initials and a death year in. So and others just haven't survived. So 18th century ones are certainly not as frequent as 19th century ones in my neck of the woods.
Most definitely. So we have a really cool picture, and I hope you're going to explain what all of those markings
Oh,
mean.
absolutely. When we get when we get to that part, yeah, I mean the skull and crossbones motif on this one, even though it is crudely carved, otherwise, just kind of blows you away.
Yeah, it is super cool. So the next key, the second key, is to learn why your ancestor migrated. This one is always interesting when you get a chance to find out why. So you want to share a little bit about this?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and there for a lot of ancestors, you're going to be able to fit them into a certain wave of immigration, things like that, or migrations within a country. It's not too often that you're going to be able to find individual motivations. If you have letters, if you have something like that, then you might. But what we know about the Rieth family that Johann Leonhard was a part of is that they were the part of the first mass migration of German-speaking people to North America. 1708, 1709, 1710, they finally get to upstate New York in the area of Albany. And truthfully, historians are still debating a little bit, what the true motivations were. For a long time, they chalked it up to the fact that it was one of the coldest winters in modern European history, and that motivated people to go. Others went with the old saw of them wanting to get religious freedom. That was not true at all as a reason. And what finally the best theory from the historian Phil Otterness, whose book Becoming German is a real classic of this mass migration, is that there was essentially a propaganda book that was circulated in southwestern Germany, talking about streets paved with gold in America, all sorts of good things that were going to come, and that the British wanted them, and we're going to pay, and we're going to give them land, all this stuff. Yeah. Well, the cover story always is better than the truth.
That's true.
and again, while I can't definitively say that this was behind the Rieth family's migration, they started with a father, mother, and I believe his 5 sons, of who Johann Leonhard was one of the sons. I can't prove that this was their motivation, but it certainly was the motivation of many of the 4,000 who accompanied this whole troop up to Britain and then over the Atlantic.
So Jim, I know for African American migration within in general, Ira Berlin describes 4 great migrations. For Germans coming to America, is there We don't need to know them all, but are there specific ones that people should think about if their parents came during these time periods, their ancestors?
I like the way you dialed me back immediately, so I didn't hijack the entire rest of the show. No, well, there's two great migrations, very generally. The first wave in the colonial times, and the second wave from about 1820 to World War I.
Okay.
In the first waivers, they came for land. That's far and above everything. Second waivers, some of them were fleeing marriage restrictions and the draft. But economic conditions were also a factor.
Okay. Key number 3, ancestors may have been squatters before landowners.
Yeah, this is something that isn't.
Go ahead.
No. This is something.
Okay.
This is something that's soft pedaled a bit in the stories of, especially the members of this migration who then went from upstate New York to the Tulpehocken region of eastern Pennsylvania, and that is the fact that they claimed they were invited by the governor of Pennsylvania to come down to this area. And there's some proof that part is true. But he was inviting them to a part of what became Pennsylvania that still had not been bought from the Native Americans. And it led to quite a tussle with the native Lenape there. Eventually, Pennsylvania did buy the area, but they were already established for a decade before that land was bought. And so when you're trying to determine their actual dates of settlement, you can't go by when the land was purchased officially from the Penns individually, because that's a decade, 2 decades later than the actual settlement times, which began in 1723.
Okay. Key number 4. Death may be caused by a work accident, and they don't have to be coal miners, right? Hold on, I'm go ahead.
They don't have to be they don't have to be coal miners, and this is holy OSHA. This is way before any sort of work rules or anything like that. And the first thing is that it's I'm loving Michael's face English and all that.
You forgot to mention their lack of a social security number. Go ahead.
I'm giving you some back there. Now you made me lose my whole train of thought. No, I mean it's not often that you actually get a cause of death in the 1700s at a time period before you have civil registration of deaths. But in his church burial record, it says that Leonhard, who was a miller by trade, that he was crushed in the cogwheel of his mill.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And he was only, for his time, for an adult, for his time period, he died in his 50s, which was relatively early. Because if you made it out of the childhood disease phase, you could usually think you're gonna make it to 60 or 70, and he died in his 50s, and you can almost you can almost visualize how gruesome a death that this must have been for him.
I was trying not to. Thank you.
Yeah, and then just an extra footnote. he died during a time that his church was trying that a rival group was trying to take it over, and so the story that's been related is that the people who came for his funeral were locked out of the church, and on a terribly cold day, they had to listen to the funeral sermon outdoors. So
Why? I missed the why.
because there was a dispute over who owned the church building, two rival groups. That this could be a quick start in all of itself.
Let's
So I
do
won't
that
go
as a quick
into
start.
more details. Cindy Cruz knows the story. I'm sure of that. So
I need to know more about that story. Let's go to my favorite thing first. This is the tombstone. Talk to us, Jim.
yes, yeah. So this is from 1747 when he died, and so it's still a rather crude stone. You see the bronze marker that was added in the 20th century, and you can see how much the stone has deteriorated. But you look at the top, and I think we have a detail shot.
Jim, was
Of
this standing up at one time and it fell
Yes,
down and they laid it? Okay.
yes, yes. They decided not to try to re-erect it because you can see it was also broken in several
Yeah.
places. I'm not sure to be honest with you, I'm not sure what the material is. It doesn't. It's probably some early marble, or maybe not even marble, because it doesn't look like sandstone, which would be more brown. But you see that skull and crossbones at the
Yeah.
top. That's a distinctive motif that is shown. And I'm glad they've been able that the stone still exists in some way. They actually had it under, I'm not sure if it was glass or plexiglass for a while, and I think
Oh,
that.
really?
Yeah, well, I think they were trying to shield it from the elements, but I don't think that really did well by it.
I don't think so.
And then at a certain point, that was removed. But
Does it signify like membership in the group or anything?
the skull and crossbones is really just an emblem of death. That this is a burial.
Anticlimactic, Jim.
Sorry.
I
Facts,
thought he was going
facts
to
is
be
facts, Jamel.
with the Illuminati or something.
No, no. The Reed family was from Steinwenden it's now it's on the border of North Rhine-Westphalen and the Saarland. But it's a tiny little village. The next shot is of their church, which dates to a much later time than they were there. But it's just a typical tiny German village that they came from.
Nice.
And this is a map of that Tulpehocken Creek region in Berks into Lebanon County, Pennsylvania. And we circled Johann Leonhard Reed's farm, which was the largest farmstead in that whole Tulpehocken region.
Wow.
You can kind of see the Tulpehocken Creek running through this area. And he was actually, his land was close to the junction of the Tulpehocken Creek and the Mill Creek. So that was a key area. But none of that prevented him from being a casualty of his mills. So,
oh my gosh. So, that is crazy. So, did he show up in the newspaper because of that? Because that sounds like an accident that might show up in the newspaper.
Oh, if only there were newspapers in Berks County in 1747. To my
1747.
knowledge, yeah, to my knowledge, it wasn't in any Philadelphia newspaper. There were a few Philadelphia newspapers. I found it in the church burial record. That's the
Nice.
church burial register has a detailed. Well, it has more details than just his name and date of death. It has his cause of death in there.
And so, like headstone markings, like I've seen some books like Georgia, whatever their society is for graves, they have neat books. Do you guys know of any books or any way that people could learn about the headstone markings?
Oh, I don't know the exact title, but the old family tree books, uh, they had a very good guide to death records that included a chapter on tombstone symbols. And I believe the author's Joy Neighbors is her name.
Okay.
Uh, and
Okay.
I think it's still in print. That was one of the best books that Family Tree Books ever put out. Even better than some of my 4 books. So
It's impossible. Impossible.
I'm giving high praise when I say that.
Yes, yes, I understand the gravity. So those were the 4 keys. Let's go through them. Crossbones and a cogwheel. Life of Johann Leonhard Rieth. Key number 1, 18th century tombstones may still exist. Key number 2, learn why your ancestors migrated. Key number 3, ancestors may have been squatters before landowners. Key number 4, death may be caused by a work accident. Jim and Michael, thank you so much. All right, let's split the show. Give me 1 second. All righty, let's bring on our special guest. So I am so honored to have a special guest here to talk to you about a subject that, I have no clue in why I'm so interested in it and have always been interested in this history. So I'm very happy to find Andrew online doing webinars and talking about this. So everyone, please welcome our special guest, Andrew Redfern.
Hello there.
Andrew. How are you?
Great to be with you. Thanks for having me. Talk about one of my favorite topics.
Yay, criminals! Woo!
Yes. And so I always think the more criminals you have, the easier your family history is going to be, because hopefully they've been well documented.
I love that thinking, Andrew. I love that thinking. So Andrew is in another time zone. What's your time zone difference from New York City, Andrew?
I think we're I'm in Sydney, Australia, so we're Greenwich Mean Time plus 11. So yes. Yeah.
So he's at a decent time. Good thing we're on in the evening. So Andrew, we ask all of our special guests to share with us their 1-minute genealogy origin story, how you got started, and when you knew you were hooked.
Wow, well, that's pretty easy. I started in the 1980s. My mother was researching our family, and I was pretty well hooked straight away. I was studying history at school, and we were researching some of the colonial times of Australia, and I was sort of starting to ask lots of questions about my family. And so I've sort of been on and off for the last, 40, 50 years or so. But yes, I keep getting drawn back to it. And any time that a question gets asked about someone in the family, that people always seem to come to me to go and do the research for them. So
Your uncle, cousin Andrew, forever. And guess what? No one has asked you to organize a family reunion, Andrew.
No, there's been a couple of family reunions, but I haven't organised one yet. Although there are people that keep saying we should get together, and I want to do that too, because I'm sure there's some hidden gems out there in people's shoe boxes and things that I need to scan and get my hands on. So.
Agreed, Andrew. I'm going to hold you to that, but let's look at some of these hidden gems that you have to share with us today. So that is not what you're doing. You are going to talk to us about tracing the criminals of Australia. So why are the criminals of Australia so important, and are they special criminals? Can you give us an overview of that?
Sure. So most people may be familiar with the term convicts, which is basically, the criminals that were transported to Australia from Britain after the US said we no longer want the convicts from Britain. Britain needed a new colony, so they established what they called New South Wales at the time, which is now Australia, and they sent 162,000 convicts to Australia in that criminal period. So, and there's a slide that I've got there that sort of explains that. And I'm not sure if we can go to that.
No, we're going to show the slides after we chat a bit. I'm sorry I didn't tell you that.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Highlights. No problems. Yeah, beautiful. So keep our cards close to our chest. So yes, that whole transportation system was very significant, and even though the people in the US may think they're not connected to a convict or a criminal in Australia, this is sometimes what happened was one of the family members was transported to Australia, and then the rest of the family may have emigrated to the US. So there could be like a split family where you actually have Australian family that you don't know about. And it often comes up in DNA records as well, when people start researching their DNA and get connections to Australia and think, I don't know any family in Australia, and that's often because of the convict background. So yes, they were transported for a range of crimes, very petty crimes. Could have just been, stealing a handkerchief or a small piece of material, right up to murder, highway robbery, and that sort of thing. So a fascinating group of people.
Did the petty crimes have a more sinister, were certain groups of people targeted? Is that why they would be sent over for petty crimes?
It depended on where they were. So if you were in Scotland, you often had to offend multiple times before you were transported. Whereas in London, any sort of crime could result in transportation. And it may be transportation for 7 years, 14 years, 21 years, or indeed life. So they were the four time periods that you could be sent for. And of course, after those 7 years or the 14 years has expired, there would be no reason why you couldn't go back to England. But of course, you had to have the money and the ability to do that. And very few convicts actually ever travelled back to the UK. So,
and I don't think there was opening the welcome mat saying, "All right, come on back, buddy."
No, because at this time there was also that stain of criminal past, and people thought once you'd been a criminal that you could not ever not be a criminal, and that raised its head in Australia too, where ex-convicts actually became quite influential in society, and a lot of people were very much against them in terms of they've been a criminal in the past, so they're going to be a criminal forever. So why should they assume a significant role in the colony? So,
but when it comes to ancestors, genealogists have turned that around, and now it's an honor, right, to have some criminals. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So up to about the 1980s, when I first started getting into family history, to have a convict ancestor was really no one ever spoke about it. There was family myths that would make up stories to hide their criminal past and their criminal ancestors, their convict ancestors. But in 1988, it was the bicentenary of the setting up of the colony by the British. And during that time, convict heritage really became very popular. And now it's almost like a badge of honor. And we say that if you have convict heritage, you're Australian royalty. So you're a member of the Australian royalty if you have convict heritage.
I love that. So let's learn about these royal Australians in tracing the criminals of Australia. So are you ready for your quick start, Andrew?
I certainly am.
All right, let's get started with step one, which is to question, do the records indicate they might be a convict? So what type of clues might you find in records that would indicate that, Andrew?
Yeah, so the big one, and this is where people often first come across that their ancestor was a convict, is when they go to get married. Because as a convict, if you wanted to get married, you had to get permission from the governor. So often on marriage records, it will say by permission of the governor, or there's also a record set of applications to marry. So yes, that by the permission of the governor will be a very big clue that they were a convict as well. So.
That's a good one, Andrew.
Yes. The other clue that you might look for is the ship that they came on. So it might often in records, it'll say, that they arrived per a particular name of a ship. And if you look up that ship arriving in that particular year, you might see, oh, that was a convict transport. So therefore I need to investigate were they a convict. So yes.
Fantastic. Get those clues first. Love that. All right, step two, and he has a lot of slides, so we're going to go a little quick through the steps so he can get to the slides. So step two is to look for the ship they arrived on. So you mentioned that. Where would they look for these records?
So there's a lot of transportation registers and records of the, lists of convicts that arrived on ships. And essentially, because Australia, other than the Indigenous communities that were already living here, everyone has emigrated to Australia. So all your ancestors, if they came to Australia, have to have got here somehow, and trying to find out that ship that they came on is a great start. So and that's can be the life work of some genealogists, trying to work out how all their lines actually arrived into Australia. So there's lots of books have been published about that. There's a great book called The Convict Ships, which sort of summarizes all the convict ships that arrived and the periods that they arrived in. So that's sort of like the Bible, I guess, of convict ships.
Nice.
It does have some mistakes, though. It was written in about the 80s and the 90s, but it's certainly a go-to resource as well.
And is Ancestry good for that, or is there another site that's better for that?
No, definitely Ancestry is a key site, because a lot of those records on there have been digitised from state archives and national archives here in Australia. The other place would be the National Archives in the UK. They have a huge collection about our convict heritage as well. So, yes.
Fantastic. Let's move on to step three is, what was the crime? How can we find out this fun part?
Yes, this is the juicy bit where you sort of think, did they really come here because they murdered someone or because they just stole a handkerchief? And we're lucky that a lot of the court records have been digitized. So the court records in the UK have been digitized. 1 in 5 convicts arrived. They were sentenced through the Old Bailey, so the court in London. So, and all those court records have been digitised. So that would be the first place that you would go to look for those. If they came from Scotland, their records haven't been digitised, but they've been indexed, so you can at least find them and then pay to have them digitised. So, yes.
Fantastic. Step 4 would then be to learn about their life in Australia. So how would they do that?
So once the convicts arrived in Australia, they would have been assigned as a working either a servant if they were female, or could have been a labourer. They could have been assigned to a government road gang to build infrastructure, and there's lists of those assignment records on on the Museums of History New South Wales, which we call the State Archives here in New South Wales, all available online. Most of it's been digitised as well. And if you can't find it, sending an email to their Ask an Archivist is always a good first step too, because they have really knowledge of the records. So, and then they might appear in newspapers as well. They may have purchased land after they'd served their sentence. Surprisingly, they may have had money as convicts. When they arrived, if they had money, that was put into bank accounts for them, and there's lists of those bank accounts of convicts that had money. That, of course, after their term was served, they would then get that money back, or they could even access that money at some stages to buy things as well. So
get some cigarettes while they're in the clink.
Exactly, that's right. Yes, because the thing with the speaking about that, being in the clink, very few of these convicts actually were in prisons. They were often assigned to families, assigned to settlers, and they would live with those people. And in fact, I've got an ancestor that requested that he be sent from the prisons in England to Australia, because he said, even if I go to Australia, I'm going to be out working and helping and doing things rather than just laying around in prisons in England. So that was certainly a much better life, really, when they got to Australia, because they were out in the open air and having to work hard, of course, but at least they were doing things. So.
Oh, that definitely, it's more like indentured servitude as opposed to imprisonment. So I did not know that they had those types of choices. What percentage of them were in like that sort of situation as opposed to the traditional prison? Did they have traditional prisons?
They did for a certain number of criminals, and it tended to be when they arrived, they would be indentured, and then if they did a misdemeanor or something, maybe then they would be put into prison, or rather than prison, what you will often see in records is they were put in chains. So they would have to work in chains for 6 months hard labour, 3 months hard labour. And after that time had expired, then they would be re-indentured as well. So there's very few prisons as we would know them sort of contemporary today and of that time even in Australia. There were sort of some, but they were more used as places to distribute the criminals and keep track of the criminals rather than incarcerate them.
Oh my gosh. I could ask you too many questions. Research their life in freedom. We're going to go to the records. And then step 6 is share with your family. Let's look at all of his incredible records, because I could keep asking him questions. Tell us about this saying. Read it if you'd like.
Yeah, so this convict, he actually ended up and died in America. So I think this captures part of the, the thinking around our convict heritage. Only those who have stood within the bars and heard the din of devils and the appalling sounds of despair can imagine the horrors of the hold of a convict ship. So he was transported to Western Australia on the west coast of Australia, but then he escaped and made his way all the way to America, where he lived a very successful life and was never returned to Australia.
Nice.
So this this can help you narrow down your research. So there were only 3 places in Australia that convicts were sent to: New South Wales, Van Diemen's Land, which is modern-day Tasmania, that little island at the bottom of Australia, and then Western Australia at the end of the transportation period. So don't go looking for the whole of Australia, because there's really only 3 spots that you can find those convicts. And in saying that, Western Australia only received male convicts. The other 2 colonies received female and male convicts. So if you're looking for a female convict, you're really only looking in New South Wales or in Van Diemen's Land. The other thing that's a little bit confusing about this time period is up until 1825, everything went through New South Wales. So Van Diemen's Land was administered by New South Wales. So New South Wales is often the first port of call for you to start looking for records. So. And then this is how you can basically reconstruct a convict's life. So, looking at their trial and court records in London, where they were held prior to going onto the ships, then the transportation registers, then when they were assignment and working, when they came to Australia, and these applications to marry that I mentioned, there's a whole range of so, trying to put, because the thing, and I was telling Shamel this earlier, that these records weren't created for family historians. So what is put those pieces of the jigsaw puzzle together. But there's many pieces of the jigsaw puzzle in a convict's life. So just using that as a guide can be really useful about, looking for their tickets of freedom, certificates of freedom, and that sort of thing can be really useful. So breaking it down into those small steps.
This is a great chart. Like, this is an incredible chart. It's like an infographic. Like, you could this is great. I love this.
Yes, and you'll often come across some illustrations as well. So this would be what we would call a road gang. And if you look carefully at those, the gentlemen there, they're in chains, so they would have had chains around their feet, often around their hands as well. The soldiers there supervising them, and they would be employed by the government to build roads, build government buildings and that sort of thing, infrastructure for the colony. But they wouldn't necessarily work on these projects for very long. They might be 6 months at a time, and then they would be indentured out as a labourer. And this is my fourth great grandmother. So she was a convict. And basically, I'll just quickly go through these slides and show you some of the records that I found in relation to her life. So Margaret Humphreys, she was committed for violent theft and highway robbery, and she was transported in 1818. You can see here, this is the digitised record of her court case from England, and she was sentenced to death, which was quite common. So you can see there, O'Hara, Humphreys and Bryant at the bottom of the right there, they were all sentenced to death, but then often what happened is that was changed to sentence for life, and they were transported beyond the seas for life to New South Wales. And then what you do is, after you start to find some of these clues, you then go down all these rabbit holes. So here I ended up on the National Library of Scotland's website, and I found a map of where she actually committed the crime. So it was in an inn near the Shadwell docks. She and two other women actually accosted a man, took him back home, and then tried to rob him. And he screamed blue murder, and then the police came and they were arrested. So, but yes, be prepared for rabbit holes and getting tracked and lost down a whole range of different things. This is on her transportation list. So this tells me that she came on the Maria in 1818. The other thing I'll point out there at the top of that record is Maria 1. So this would mean that the ship Maria actually made multiple voyages over a number of years, and she arrived on the first voyage of the Maria in 1818. And that can be a really big clue when you're tracing them through the records, that you can actually find them. It'll say, Margaret Humphreys per Maria 1818, and then you've got the right person. So
nice.
Then surgeon's journals. So when on many of the convict ships, particularly after the 1814, they changed the rules and they had to have surgeons on board these ships, and the surgeon would keep a record of who was injured on the ship, who received medical appointments and that sort of thing. So this is the surgeon's journal from the Maria, and I've just picked out the things that apply to Margaret Humphreys. You can see that she was had the gripes, she had a sprained shoulder, she had hearing loss, she had a sore mouth, and the treatment that she received. So you can get quite specific.
Was going through it.
Sorry?
She was going through it.
She certainly was, yes. And there will be records of births on there. There'll be records of deaths on there. So whilst your ancestor may not necessarily be mentioned by name, I'm lucky here that Margaret has been, but you can actually rebuild that journey of that ship with all those other women as well, or all those other
Wow.
And this then is her, when she was assigned, when she first arrived, when she came to Australia, she was assigned to a person by the name of James McCarthy, and he was living in Kent Street. So you can see, this is from the Museums of History, New South Wales. you can find the actual original documents that have been digitized, but they've also been indexed as well. So you can read, they're much easier to read, but then you can get access to the original document as well.
Nice.
Then this is her application to marry, where she's applying to marry a James McCarthy. Wonder where she met him at. She was actually the person he was working for. And it's one thing I will point out about James McCarthy. On that application there, you'll see it says James McCarthy was free and Margaret Humphreys prisoner per the ship Maria. Well, James McCarthy was free at that stage, but he actually had arrived as a convict as well. So just because it says he was free, don't necessarily think that he didn't arrive into the colony as a convict. So, they wanted to get rid of that convict stain. So they were very proud saying, I'm a free person, but they may have actually arrived into the colony as a convict as well.
Upwardly mobile. Very nice.
Yes, that's
So
right.
expect
Yes.
their condition as you see them to have always been their condition.
And then, strangely enough, she has a second application to marry. Because what happened?
Mark.
Yes. She and James McCarthy, her first husband, then remembered that he'd been married in the UK. How you would forget that, I'm not sure. But, so he applied to have his first wife brought out to the colony, which did happen. She was paid at government expense to be shipped from the UK to Sydney. So therefore left Margaret high and dry. So she applied to marry a second person, James Harding, and he was actually a convict as well. So, and you can see I've just annotated it there to make it a little bit easier to read.
I don't know if you can see my mouth hanging open, but why did they pay for him to bring his wife over?
He applied to the governor, and because they were the colony was very male heavy, so they needed a lot of women. And so anyone that sort of applied to have a wife, or they thought, well, if we bring the wife over, they can have more family, they can sort of be part of the colony. So yes, it was method to their madness. So it was worth the trip, worth the expense.
It now.
So then this, after you find the application to marry, you then go back into the regular records of birth, death, and marriage certificates and that sort of thing. So, there's a lot of crossing over and a lot of jumping between record sets to reconstruct these lives. So, yes, the top part of that record is the application to marry. And then the second part is the actual official registration. Official registration in Australia started in 1856. So prior to that, you'll have church registered in Bath. Yeah, so quite early in some cases. So yes, very good.
That's nice. 1856.
Yes. And then this on the left-hand side is her ticket of leave. So when a convict had done, good service, they would get a ticket of leave where they were able to sort of have a few more freedoms. They may have been able to sort of go around in the community in a certain area. But then these tickets, and they had to carry them on their person at all times. And if requested, they would have to produce them. The note that's made on this ticket of leave, though, is it was cancelled but not surrendered because she was aiding a runaway to escape from town. So, often these convicts, they sort of got some freedoms and then they were rearrested and then they sort of appear in the courts again. So, yes, following their life can be a bit of a rabbit warren, and you just don't think they started as a convict, became free, and then they sort of lived a upstanding life. They did sort of go backwards and forwards a little bit.
Recidivism is not a new thing.
Exactly, yes. And then this is part of a project that I was involved in called Ironclad Sisterhood, where back in the 1970s, someone at the Society of Australian Genealogists, a research officer, actually went through and documented all the female convicts that she could find. And she actually typed them up onto these sheets of paper. So you can actually find research that's been done by other people that have sort of looked at either a particular convict ship or a particular type of convict or a particular groups of convicts. So you can really it's important that you go through and try and find as many things as you can about the convict and then put them together. And we've also used some AI to generate based on, because often these records will have a visual description. a description of what they looked like. So we actually fed that into some AI tools and sort of came up with some options of what they may have looked like. So, which is always fascinating.
Nice. So which AI tools did you use to do that?
So that was Mid-Journey we were using. We probably need to go back because that was probably 2 years ago now that we did that. So the tools were very much in their infancy. So we want to go back now and sort of run those tools again and see what it comes up with. Because what we were finding at the time was they were starting to produce women that looked very, very similar after we got to, doing several of them. But yes, so we want to go back and see if we can get some more nuanced sort of looks around there as well. So,
and apologies if this is something that's not on the tip of your tongue, but do you know what percentage of them were women?
I think only around 15 to 20%.
Okay. Makes
so
sense.
Yes, predominantly male. So yes.
We made it, Andrew. I didn't think we would make it. This is fantastic. So
you're a good host, Jamel. You just keep moving through.
So how did it feel when you found, was she your first female ancestor convict?
Yes, one of the first. And my first and one of my only female convict ancestors, actually. And whilst I think the thing that I came to was how much of a tragic life she had. You saw her ship voyage, how much she went through, her court case. She was really, involved with 2 other women, and she really didn't seem to have much to do with it. She was married and then she had to remarry. And the really sad thing is she disappears from the records in about the 1840s with her second husband. I have not yet been able to find her gravestone or where she was buried or where she died. So that's still a work in progress.
So have you gotten any idea of like her life before she became a convict? Sounded like it was pretty tragic that, 2 women had to set up a man to kind of like survive, it sounds like. So
Yes.
Do you know anything about her life before she got to Australia?
No, and this is one of the challenges with convicts. Often you will find a lot of information about their convict records, but often it's hard to find them before they became a convict or after they stopped being a convict because they just become normal run-of-the-mill type people. So yes, I imagine she was probably working as a servant or, may have been destitute in London, and that's why she was hanging around pubs looking for money, begging and that sort of thing. So I can certainly almost guarantee, bless you.
Sorry.
Bless you again. I can certainly guarantee she wasn't living a very prosperous life in London. So, yeah.
So Andrew, again, thank you for sharing your family, your ancestry. It was an honor to learn about Margaret. And let's run through the steps for tracing the criminals of Australia. Step 1 is, do the records indicate they might be a convict? Step 2, look for the ship they arrived on. Step 3, what was the crime? Step 4, learn about their life in Australia. Step 5, research their life in freedom. And step 6, share it with your family. So Andrew, how did your family feel about knowing this information when you shared it?
They're always amazed at what we can find out about our ancestors. So, and it's always the stories. When I'm sharing it with family, it's all about the stories about, how she robbed this man in England and then ended up and had to marry twice. So I don't confuse them with the facts and figures, so to speak, but they're always interested in the stories. They love a good story. So, yeah.
And we love good stories here at Genealogy Quick Start, and you definitely gave us a good story here, as did Jim Beidler. Bring him back. Thank you guys so very much for sharing your ancestors with us and using that as a teaching tool here at Genealogy Quick Start. I have some music somewhere. Thank you guys so much. Andrew, don't drop. Stay around.